Okay, so we are at the top of the hour, I believe. So we're going to get started. And Noel is sharing his screen there. So welcome, everybody. I see we have 16 participants. And it's great to see all your faces. So while we're waiting for a few other people, I'm going to give you a little sneak preview of what's coming up later on in the breakout session that we're going to have. If you could put one word in the chat as to how you're feeling about your climate advocacy. Are you feeling up? Are you feeling down? Are you feeling sideways, north, south, east, west, whatever? Just put one word in the chat, and we're going to expand on that in the breakout room. When we get to that, that would be after Leah's presentation. Leah, welcome to our meeting. Thank you. Good to see you. And
mahalo for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So our agenda is going to consist of little welcome comments, one word in the chat. We're going to talk about CCL a little bit, Leah, just in case you would like a refresher, and we always need a refresher. And then we're going to have your presentation. We're going to talk about Hawaii successes, a little breakout, like I mentioned, statewide actions, and national updates. So having said all that, the question is, who the heck are we? Citizens Climate Lobby. Noel, please go ahead.
Yeah, before we do that, I want to just take a quick look at what's been entered in the chat.
Oh.
So, we've got motivated, we've got inspired, hopeful, sideways. Matt, you didn't follow instructions. It was just one word.
I'm still working.
Never quitting, Molly. Yeah, you're quite wise there with the hyphenation, and also Paul, 60 degrees north of center. But going back to Matt, have limited ability to participate in this meeting. We'll listen. Okay. Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for those who just joined us, put one word in the chat. How you're feeling. North, south, east, west, up, down, sideways, whatever. Yeah, sorry, Noel, go ahead.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I'm just going to quickly go through who we are. I have a few slides here. I'll just go through them really quick. So first of all, I wanted to share our core values as an organization, and I'll just read through this. There's a descriptor for each of these, but I'll give you an idea of how we operate, what governs how we do things, and how we think and how we behave. So big focus on obviously big climate solutions. We're optimistic. We focus on relationships. We work with integrity, focus on personal power, being nonpartisan, and also we engage. We seek diversity. So we're very inclusive in our work and our engagement. Our mission: we're committed to building the will for effective climate solutions, and as empowered citizens, we talk with everybody about how national climate action can help ensure a healthy future while helping with the economy, strengthening our economy. We have an expanded policy agenda. For those of you who have been with us for a long while, it's been carbon fee and dividend, carbon pricing. But late last year, we decided to introduce or expand our policy agenda. So carbon pricing continues to be, a big focus of our intentions. And in addition to carbon pricing, we're now also focused on nature-based solutions, specifically in this case, healthy forests. And the rationale for that, as you may all know, is that in addition to cutting emissions, we have to do what we can to sequester legacy carbon that's already in the atmosphere, and carbon that will continue to impact our climate long term unless we can draw that down. In addition, we're focused on efficiency, and that is reducing the need for energy to begin with, and that as a strategy would allow us to maximize our trajectory towards decarbonization of our energy sector, right? Shift over to clean, renewable, sustainable energy economy. So building electrification and efficiency is a big part of that. And then lastly, also focused on clean energy permitting reform. There's a flavor of that applies across any of our states, but on the mainland especially, where there is a tremendous amount or opportunity rather to generate renewable energy in some parts of the nation, but an inability at the moment to transmit that energy to areas of the nation where there's heavy demand. So for us to be able to do that, we need to build transmission, and there's a lot of permitting reform that's required to make that happen. And with that, I am going to transition back to Ron.
Yeah, thank you, Noel. And the websites expand on those beautiful core values and mission statement, and also our expanded policy. So encourage you all to learn more. That's kind of the first step in advocacy, I think, to know that we need to make change, and then to learn what do we need to know to share to bring change about. So having said that, it's a real pleasure to welcome Leah Laramee to our meeting tonight. Leah is the coordinator of the State Climate Change Commission, Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Commission, I should say. Earlier this year, the Commission submitted testimony in support of our carbon cashback bills in the House and in the Senate. And I'd just like to read a little comment here. The Commission believes that putting a price on carbon is the single most effective action that will achieve Hawaii's ambitious and necessary emission reduction goals. So, Leah, your audience this evening is in total agreement with that position, and we're eager to learn more about your work of the Commission and your role as coordinator. So thanks so much for being here. The floor is yours. You're muted, Leah.
I am. Mahalo so much for having me. Yeah, I really appreciate those of you that reached out to me this session and, shared some information. It's, only little me that's at the Commission. So all of the support I received from you, it's really, really, truly appreciated. I've had some people ask, how would you like us to follow up? And I always say, just keep following up and keep bugging me and, helping this train chug along. So first of all, just big mahalo to all of you folks and all of the work that you do. I was just, as you were talking, finishing up my slideshow. So hopefully it will make sense. Let's get this going. Start from the beginning. There we go. All right. So yes, my name is Leah, not Leah. No worries, Ron.
Okay.
It's a pretty common mistake. I just like to let people know. I was born and raised on Hawaii Island, and I moved over here about 15 years ago. And my career started off in natural resource management, also looking at kind of the policy side of natural resource management. I worked at the Division of Forestry and Wildlife for many, many years, and then slowly started working in carbon forestry. And then that leaked a little bit more into looking at working lands such as agriculture and ranching, and looking at doing carbon smart practices in those areas, which then led me to looking at the overall holistic picture of climate change in the state. So I was lucky enough to work with my predecessor, Anu Hiddle, for many years as she kind of built up the commission. And when she decided it was time for a change, recommended me for this position. So I've been in it officially for almost a year now. It's been really great. I've learned so much, and been able to work with some really great people. And yeah, excited to share some of that with you. So just a quick overview, like who is the Climate Commission? A lot of people are not familiar and oftentimes get this confused. We have the Hawaii State Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation Commission, which is different than the Honolulu City and County Climate Change Commission. So the Hawaii State Climate Commission, which as we shorten so we don't have to say Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation, It has 20 members. It's led by 2 co-chairs, DLNR and Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. You folks, I'm sure, followed along with the unfortunate rejection of the nomination of Scott Glenn. So Mary Alice is currently back in the role of being our co-chair, and we have our new DLNR chair, Dawn Chang, as our other co-chair. We have 4 representatives from the legislature, and these are all old pictures, so some of these have changed and are different, so please don't look too closely at this. We have all 4 counties represented. All 4 county planning departments sit on the Climate Commission, and then we have 12 state agencies and departments that are also represented, and 1 staff member, which is myself. A lot of the things that the Commission has done is create these disclosure requirements and guidance documents to help folks to understand the science behind climate change, and also to kind of promote different objectives and policy directives and how to use those. So one of the big things is the disclosure requirement that when you're selling a house, you have to say if it's going to be impacted by sea level rise. So we produced a guidance document on how to do that, as well as the sea level rise viewer tool. And just recently updated the, last year we updated the sea level rise vulnerability plan, as well as did a 5-year review of the Commission's activities. We've also produced a transportation choices toolkit, which is really looking at reducing vehicle miles traveled so that we can, have less emissions into the atmosphere, and looking at, increasing multimodal options across the state, looking at land use, reducing the amount of roads that are built, those types of things. We're currently doing a multimodal hub work plan on Oahu. We're looking at all the state-owned parking facilities in the state, and looking if we can turn those into more community spaces with, like bike parking and transit hubs, e-bikes, EV charging, just make them more functional than, just the daytime parking spaces. The adaptation work we're doing, I think I spoke about this disclosure already. We're also doing a project in Punaluu on, I think this map zooms in on it. And we're looking at doing some nature-based solutions on helping to make the coastline more resilient so that we don't have to build more revetments to protect both the coastline and the roads and the houses above that, but seeing if we can do some things such as like sand dune restoration, beach nourishment, and possibly some native species outplanting to make the coastline a little bit more resilient. We also do work with natural and working lands. That's my background and one of my biggest passions. So we've worked with a great team to identify different lands that are, prime for either reforestation, for prime agricultural practices, and identifying the barriers and opportunities as to why certain lands are not utilized. And through this process, we got the Carbon Smart Land Manager Assistance Program established through the legislature. And this provides incentive funding for land managers to implement climate smart practices on their lands. So really excited about that. We just have the RFP out right now. It should close next week or the end of this week. And we'll be able to hire on staff to help manage this program as well. We also have a number of vistas that work across the state and counties that help to support all the work we do. And we're also looking at equity and social and climate vulnerability. Sustainable and Resilience Office was able to do an analysis looking at the different factors that make different areas more susceptible to climate change and what those vulnerabilities are. And so we're really hoping to build that out, because if you look at a lot of the mapping tools that have been developed on the federal side, the representation of Hawaii is not, it doesn't equate to what we actually see on the ground. And so a lot of the federal funding that's coming through the Infrastructure and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act are based on the Justice 40, which is making sure that 40% of all funding goes to underserved and disadvantaged communities. But unfortunately, the maps that show Hawaii do not represent those communities fairly. So really trying to gear this up and working to make sure that we address these needs. And then the big one that we're working on right now is the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. If you folks are not familiar, this is in 2 stages. The first stage is non-competitive funding. So the state is receiving $3 million to do some planning. And then there will be competitive grants open at the end of the year, totaling $4.6 billion. It's a great opportunity. The objective is this is really to coordinate between, state, county, tribal agencies to make sure that we reduce redundancy and maximize action across the board to implement climate pollution reduction activities. So this is primarily looking at mitigation efforts and not so much adaptation. Each state got $3 million. The local municipalities got, it's split up for $67 million, and the only municipality that got it was City and County of Honolulu. So we'll be working closely with them on their $1 million allocation. So these are the entities that are eligible for the implementation grants. It doesn't actually highlight nonprofits in here, which I always actually thought it did. And I was reading it today and I was like, I might have been wrong. But our intention is definitely to make sure that community groups and nonprofits, non-governmental agencies are also considered under these, and that we'll be applying with those folks in mind. Next, I know I got a list of questions, so I thought I would just rapid fire go through them and try to answer as many as possible that you folks sent through. So unfortunately, the $100 million climate fund, it didn't pass. So what happened was Governor Josh Green announced that he would like to pledge that money, but all funding has to be approved by the legislature, and the legislature did not approve that pot of funding. They did identify certain areas where they would like to put money towards climate action, but it wouldn't be a centralized pot of money that would be dedicated directly to climate change. I don't know what the status of exactly where the money is going because they're still negotiating the budget, but this bill did die. Hydrogen hub application, the application has been submitted. And the awards will be announced at the end of the year. So there's still going to be a little bit of back and forth and compliance and some discussion. But the application was successfully submitted by the Hawaii State Energy Office. I actually didn't know about the methane satellite data stuff, so thank you for this question. I'm familiar with a lot of the methane work, but I'll bring this up with our Clean Air branch at the Department of Health to see if they're looking into this specifically. So this question, the authors of the mandated climate plan, is that the climate pollution reduction grant? Is that what the question is directed at? I wasn't sure. Yeah. Okay. So yes. So the commission has been directed as the lead author for the plan, but we are working very closely with all of the state departments and the counties on developing this plan. And it's going to actually, we've decided with the Hawaii State Energy Office that we're actually going to be working hand in hand with what they're doing for the decarbonization strategy that was mandated by law last year. So they'll kind of feed into each other, be one and the same, but the climate action plan will also include county level information. And we'll be basically just taking and updating what the counties have already done for their climate action plans. So it's a very collaborative thing, and we've also included some of the folks here have joined our meetings, and we're including other nonprofits. It's in the early stages now, but we'll definitely be expanding our outreach to make sure that a lot of voices are represented. The time period for it is very short, so I think I just got a message now that we can start spending June 1st. So we have from June 1st until till March. I'm not sure if it's the beginning, middle, or end of March to finalize this plan. So we're hoping to do as much outreach and community engagement as possible, but it will be unfortunately minimal. The good news is there's a phase 2 of the comprehensive climate action plan, and that will be where we're going to be doing a lot more community engagement and working to incorporate, Indigenous knowledge into our climate work. So I think that answers this next one. There is going to be an update on the greenhouse gas inventory very shortly. I heard that it was going to be this month, and I have seen drafts of it, and so it's very nearly done. So, yeah, it's very shortly will be out. EV charging infrastructure development status. I honestly don't have a good answer for this. People are working on it. There's a lot of federal funding for this, so we're hoping that it will just get used quickly, and we'll have a good EV charging deployed throughout the state. I do know that there were a few bills requiring that new buildings as well as affordable housing be EV ready. If not actually have the systems in place, they'd at least have the ability to be converted very easily. And I don't think that those bills went through. Correct me if I'm wrong on those, but that was unfortunate.
Yeah, very unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I just on the EV charging one, I do want to highlight because I'm kind of involved. So the big one or big initiative is the NEVI program, and that calls for 8 charging hubs across the state. One on Kauai, one on Oahu, and one on Maui, and then 5 on Hawaii Island. And each of those hubs will have 4 DC fast chargers, which are 150 kW, which is like, just for context, the HECO fast chargers are 50 kW. So wow. That's a massive infrastructure, to be deployed here in the state, and DOT has been very, very much involved in that. So we're looking forward to seeing that come to fruition.
Awesome. Thank you for the update.
Sure.
I think that was all. So, we also have a Green Blue Urban U group where we talk about nature-based solutions and how to get more trees in urban areas, and the values of trees and the different co-benefits. So we meet monthly to do that type of discussion and work. Now that's all. So open to any questions that folks might have on top of those other ones, if we have time.
Yeah, we do. We do have time, and you've been very, very efficient in getting through all of that. Thank you, Leah. Absolutely terrific. I guess the question that comes to mind here, you mentioned NGOs and nonprofits such as ourselves. How do you see us at CCL being able to help in the work that you're doing in any area that we feel is to a greater or lesser extent our bailiwick and our area of expertise?
My head was just running. There's so many different ways. I'm really thinking that it's going to be really challenging, but a great opportunity for us in doing this climate action plan and making sure that we reach out to as many folks as possible and incorporate as many voices as possible. One of the big things that we're trying to identify is so what EPA is requiring us to do is basically put together a list of actions that are shovel ready, for lack of a better term, that we can then apply for the implementation funds with. So, helping to identify those projects, helping to get any projects that are maybe close but not quite there up and running and ready. That's kind of going to be my focus for the next little while, is making sure that that's all happening. And then, you folks have been really great on the policy side and developing those policy things. I think continued work on that is great. I think, with one of the ideas that I'm playing around with, and this is not finalized at all, is I don't know if you folks were able to participate at the Hawaii Climate Week in January earlier this year. I'm thinking of shifting over more towards workshops in October, where we really start thinking through, okay, what are our policy priorities and how can we work through some of the barriers? So the carbon cashback would be a big one of those. Is, there's a lot of barriers and there's a lot of, kind of resistance. So can we work through some of those things and have those like larger discussions with a group of people to try and, bring a little bit more forethought into them. And then that will give me more time to then hopefully meet with legislators and talk them through and do, briefings with them for the legislative session. So there are two ideas.
Great. And let me ask, do I see anybody has a question? Please raise your hand or put it in the chat. I think Paul's monitoring the chat. Paul, do you see any questions jumping out there?
I have a question.
I do not.
Okay.
So I'll raise my hand.
Good. Go ahead.
Yeah. Leah, thanks very much for your presentation and for sharing all the, I didn't realize how many different initiatives and how many different individuals and, were involved in all of this. It's great stuff. I'm curious about the engagement with the counties, and pardon me if you, alluded to this earlier, but clearly there's a lot of work that needs to happen across each county. And when you look at what's happening in some of the rural communities, right? And Hawaii Island is just one big rural community. There are all these different, the challenges that are maybe not unique, but they're more prominent compared to what you'd see on Oahu. So I'm just curious about the collaboration between your office and some of the offices, or the offices that are coming up, right? Like Hawaii Island, they're coming up with a similar office. But just working with the counties to either influence and inspire similar efforts, or to support directly or indirectly. I'm just curious about that level of engagement for the counties.
Yeah. So it's getting better and better, I'll say. So we're able to, through the U.S. Climate Alliance, we're able to provide technical assistance support from Huanani partners to do some grant writing assistance for the counties. So that's been a really great opportunity for us to talk to the counties and see, kind of what their needs are and how we can support them. And it's led to, better conversations and better connections on their work and how we can expand upon it. That's largely been based around transportation type of things, but also through the development of, or the CPRG, the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. We've also been working really closely with the counties, and we'll probably be giving some one sub-grant to Hawaii County. It was offered to all the counties for them to support some of their work. And, they're all involved in this process, and we're going to be working really hard to make sure that they get implementation funding through this opportunity. But I think it's also been a really great opportunity, because even beyond this, we're building really good relationships.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody questions? Yeah,
Paul.
Paul, go ahead. Did I see your hand?
Just curious, and I don't know if Matt, I know you have, you're saying you don't have the greatest connectivity. So Matt, who's on this, heads up Hawaii Environmental Change Agents, which represents a number of task forces dealing with specific environmental issues, from carbon cashback to, let's say, healthy soils, Noel's group on electrification of transportation to building decarbonization, what have you. Does it help if Matt or Hika kind of interfaces with you, or is there a way for them to that group to interface with you so that you don't have to reach out to every single organization or every single group?
Yeah, definitely. I would love to leverage any and other, opportunities that I have. So, this is, maybe not totally on point, but we are going to be hosting a few community climate fairs. So there's going to be one on Oahu and one on Hawaii Island. And the reason that it's not on the other islands is because we're having trouble getting things done there. So it's not that I don't love you as well with the other counties. And so, that would be great, just sending the message about that if you want to be involved and, participate in those things. But I will say that I am connected with the environmental change agents and got a lot of the emails during lunch session. They were super, super helpful. So thank you for all those. And I definitely didn't interact very much because, trying to kind of keep that church and state divide. But yeah, I mean, it's really helpful to have people reach out and share things and being able to share with you folks for you to distribute out.
Yeah, Leah, let me just comment. Getting to sit in on your planning meeting last week, the non-competitive $3 million grant, and to get accepted for that $3 million, as I understand it, you got this federal form, EPA form maybe, and it had these kind of loaded questions like, how are you going to do exactly thus and so, and you had to give a good answer to those questions, and it was a 16-page form. I got to say, I didn't get to read it all, but I loved hearing the discussion that you led with the Climate Commission, and I hope it wasn't inappropriate for a person with an NGO such as CCL to be sitting in quietly and just listening and learning. It was a great opportunity. If we're able to do that, I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want, my big reason in advocating for the commission to take this opportunity on is because I wanted it to be really inclusive, and I wanted it to look at the full holistic picture of all the mitigation strategies we can take. And I feel like we've put a lot of effort behind, EVs and that transfer, and we've put a lot of effort behind sea level rise. There's still so much to go, but I feel like those things are, they're happening. They're going to continue to happen. The market's going to push those. I really want to, make sure that we're hearing a bunch of different voices in that. So that was really my goal. So it's great to have you folks there and get any kind of feedback. The offer went out to everyone who subscribed to our newsletter. So it's not like a private meeting per se, but we're also not kind of advertising it because, it is a working meeting, and, those can always get derailed quite quickly if you have too many chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah, right. Good. Well, thank you so much for that.
Is there time for one more question?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Yeah. So, focus on transportation, emission reduction, you just mentioned it too. Sea level rise. So adaptation strategies, responding to the consequences of climate change. These are great. I'm just curious about the other spaces, including sustainable food production, the nature of the agriculture industry and how it could evolve so that not only does it provide us with sustenance, right, and food security, but we're able to do it in a way that is climate friendly. I'm just curious about whether or not any of the spaces that you described earlier, and pardon me, because there was quite a few, and I was kind of distracted. If any of those were covering ag, covering food production, covering sustainable, sustainable food production and food security.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a natural working lands research team that I was leading before I was in this role, and so we actually have a team in Washington D.C. right now, meeting with the U.S. Climate Alliance and all the different states to look specifically at natural and working lands and the role that they play here. I also do work. We don't communicate so much anymore, but with Albie Miles and the work that he's doing and those types of things. I'm very interested in promoting circular economies here within the state, especially when it comes to agriculture. That seems like the most obvious place to instill it, and that's why we have our Climate Smart incentives program that we just established last year and are going to be funding. So I'm definitely in the space. It's looking a lot at soil health more specifically than actual food production, but I was also part of the group that got the $40 million for the Climate Smart Commodities grant. If you folks are aware of that, the U8, well, it was through an organization called Linker, but it was really led by Dr. Susan Crow at UH Manoa, who's a soil scientist, and a bunch of other amazing people that got together to get $40 million to really help to look at that broader picture of the role of natural and working lands and to produce food in a climate friendly and sustainable way.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that, Leah, we are exactly at 30 minutes, which is what we planned. So congratulations for your time here, and you're totally welcome. We would love it if you can stay for the rest of our meeting. But we know this is an extra curricular activity, and they're in short supply. So if you have to leave, feel free. What we're going to discuss right now, actually, is Hawaii successes. Then we're going to have a little breakout session, which is entitled, "Hey, how you all doing?" And then we're going to talk about local legislation and upcoming events. So let's see, moving into Hawaii successes, I think, Noel, yeah, thank you. There's the slide. And I'd like to just begin here because I've got the mic right now. And unfortunately, Nicole Gray, who is the Hawaii Island aide for Representative Joe Takuda, just had to apologize and leave the meeting. But I want to say that the Hilo Town Hall, not so long ago, was an outstanding event, very well attended at the YMCA, at least 100 or more people, standing room only. And here's our own Ruth Robinson, and she's got her question written on an index card, and she's getting her climate advocacy question read. And Ruth, I think it's true you got a nice email response from the staff regarding your question. Does that sound right?
Well, I got an immediate response from Jill Tokuda, so I appreciated that. And she was enthusiastic about working to help in any way that she can. She wants Hawaii to be a model for other states in terms of dealing with climate change.
Beautiful, thank you. So I'd like to have somebody else address the passage of HR 125. Paul, are you there?
Sure. So I think most of you have gotten plenty of emails about this, so everybody should be well versed in this by now. Thanks everybody for the support on this resolution, both the House resolution and the House concurrent resolution 124, which unfortunately that was deferred in the Senate hearing, but we do have the success that the single chamber House resolution has been adopted. So it will be transmitted to the president, vice president, and I can't remember who else was listed on the resolution who should receive it, in terms of the federal folks. It will go out sometime after session, as there are other resolutions that have the same request, if you will, that they be sent to federal folks. So they'll bundle them all up in one package and send them out. Ron and I, as liaisons, will be advertising this success and expressing that, the will of the people here to see carbon pricing. So, and just to be clear, I think everybody knows, but just in case not, the resolution is urging the federal government to enact carbon fee and dividend or carbon cashback. So, it just helps us say that, hey, there's support out here for this policy, and hopefully we can get other states to do this and move this legislation forward. And going to something what you said, Leah, about dealing with the barriers to this policy. So hopefully this helps to overcome some of those. Go ahead, Ron.
Very good, Paul. Thank you. And Helen, Kauai.
Well, it follows right along with what Paul said, because he mentioned that the concurrent resolution 124 did not pass. However, it is our success that we were able to work with. We worked with all of our legislators, but in particular, when HCR 124 was being, it almost got referred to the committee with Wakai, Senator Wakai, who has been a barrier. And so I called Senator Kochi and had a good discussion with him, and he actually had it re-referred. So although it got deferred in the long run, we felt like we had a really good exchange with Senator Kochi, and that he actually responded and acted upon what we asked for and got it re-referred to another committee. So despite the deferment in the end, we feel really good about that success.
Very good. And Doug, Maui.
Yeah, just echoing more looks, having this resolution just presented and having the collaboration across the state was fantastic, following what Helen said, and also just finding what the barriers are, just continuing the conversation to find out who was really in opposition in the Senate. So hopefully we'll just grow our relationships as we were trained, and I think there's a lot of good energy from having this resolution. Engaging members, it gave it increased the conversation, and we found a lot of members here in Maui that weren't as active, but did respond to supporting the resolution. So it was important time to have that resolution proposed, and even though we lost some good outcomes.
Yeah, and what I should say in this whole debate about carbon cashback, and particularly federal legislation, senior legislative aide for Representative Kaikahele, Dave Chun, is with us, and Dave has had a long relationship and a good relationship with Citizens Climate Lobby. And Dave, I want to thank you for being on the meeting tonight. Thank you for your support for the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which Kaikahele chose to co-sponsor. And as we know, that carbon pricing bill has yet to be reintroduced into the 118th Congress. So we look forward to that event. Going on to Oahu, Supercharged Youth. Who would like to speak to that?
So I'll touch on two events that happen and one that is happening. So first, in March, there were the 5 here pictured, Chisato being one of them, who met with the Episcopal Diocese on Oahu and presented on what they have been doing around climate change and trying to inspire the various church leaders to take up efforts to deal with climate change. So certainly some focus, well, a decent amount of focus around CCL's legislative priorities, but just in general about getting folks to tell their climate story and raising awareness that we need to do something about climate change. And I think they were extremely well received, being youth and excellent speakers on the topic. The second, on Friday, we met sort of a hybrid meeting with Representatives Lowen, Martin, Peruso, and Senator Rhodes joined us for a few minutes. So actually, Audrey and Anya were at the Capitol with me, and Chisato and Logan joined online. So we had a chance to actually talk to Representative Peruso a little bit afterwards. But anyways, all of them were sharing their take on the legislative session and what we need to do going forward. I would say one message that came out of that was to try and work with these legislators ahead of time and finding areas of common ground and working on those areas of common ground in the legislative session. It is likely to bring many more wins if we can do that, right? So we should still push for carbon fee and dividend, even though for carbon cashback, that probably is not their top priority, though they're supportive. But look at what their top priorities are, as I'm sure many of them align well with what we're trying to do, and if we could work with that. And so we plan to have a follow-up meeting with these legislators sometime in May, where we can start to map out this this action plan, if you will, going forward. And this builds upon the Climate Future Forum that the youth had in the beginning of December, where about 8 or 9 legislators joined, 80 youth and some community members to talk about or to kind of come up with a set of legislative priorities or legislative agenda for this current session. And so the idea is to, okay, what do we learn? And let's try and build a little bit earlier what the set of legislative priorities are going into 2024. And then last, Logan and Chisato and myself will participate in Sierra Club's event, the kind of Walk for Water. So this is dealing with Red Hill and trying to raise funds to defuel the facility as rapidly as possible. Thanks, Ron.
Super, Paul. Thank you. So now
Hey, Ron.
our super tech person is setting up a breakout room.
Hey,
isn't
Ron,
it?
just before we
go ahead.
continue, I just wanted to just add one more thing. So as far as our youth are concerned, I just want to acknowledge them for the great work they did during the legislative session in terms of actually testifying, getting on Zoom and just being there and, sharing openly and confidently, support for the bills. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I think taking time away from school, if they had to do that, and just being there, I think it was commendable. So I don't know if Chisato is still there, but I just wanted to ensure that message gets through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's their age group's future more than many of ours. So it's wonderful that they're there. So now, Noel, are we kind of ready for breakout rooms?
Yeah, I'm getting it ready.
Yeah, Noel is getting it ready, and I'll just fill a little dead air time here while Noel does that, and say that building on what we did at the beginning of the meeting, where we put a one-word comment maybe about how we're feeling. This breakout is going to randomly assign us. So this is a blind date, folks. And Noel is going to make these breakout rooms, and I think he's going to arrange it so there's 2 or 3 people in each breakout room. And the question we're going to address is, how are you all doing? And we're facing an uncertain future. We know that. We're listening to the climate news. We're dealing with urgency, and as Michael Mann likes to say, however, we also have agency. We can make a difference. It's not too late to reduce the worst effects. So the climate news, there's positive happenings, maybe there's setbacks. How are we feeling about that, and what coping strategies, emotions, actions? And we'll come back and share some highlights. So now you don't have a lot of time. I mean, you have more than one word, but you only got 5 minutes, and 5 minutes goes lickety-split. So how did that go, folks? Any key revelations that anybody would like to share?
It went well. I think we heard from Ruth about her interaction with Jill Tokuda, and that, so we have an opportunity there to present some opportunities to Jill for things that we'd like to see her support. So that was good.
Thanks, Virginia.
Yeah. Do you want to go on to others? Steve is looking for other opportunities now that carbon cashback is kind of finished for the legislative session. So he's kind of wondering what else he could possibly focus on. And I'm with Steve. I'd like to broaden my focus also.
Well, CCL has there's still a few bills that are still moving along, right, Paul? That we as an organization are tracking. So I think that there's some additional work that can be done there.
You know, Paul, the segue from that would be local legislation that is pending. I think Noel might have a slide for that.
Yeah. Do you want me to go ahead and transition? Because the next slide is just a quick update from Virginia about the media.
Oh, I'm sorry, we missed that. Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I will share my screen, and pardon me, the image it looks really blurry. So, but Virginia, you can share the highlights.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about the blurriness. I've been trying to fix that. So we are getting a steady number of letters and op-eds published, and most recently, and Noel put a link to it in the chat, we had a nice editorial published in the Honolulu Civil Beat about the resolution that passed and detailed all the benefits that pricing carbon with a dividend can bring. So that was really good. And then kind of, as I think you're going to be talking about other areas, we also had a letter published about in support of a bill that will streamline permitting for solar projects on places like rooftops and commercial buildings. And that will increase the amount of electricity available to HECA. So it's or HECO. So it's going to be a nice opportunity. So I think that's probably a good summary, because I know there's much more coming. Yes, and there's the bills, SB 781.
Sorry. Yeah. So, as people have said, CCL is, as Noel said in the beginning, expanding its legislative priorities. That's coming from really from the national level. So CCL's got a lot of efforts there, and so we've decided to take this to the state level and looking for opportunities. So here are 3 bills that have gone to conference right now. So we don't have a lot of power over these, or a lot of influence, I guess I should say. That no more testimony will be accepted. It's up to the conferees or what have you in the House and the Senate to work out the differences in the Senate version and the House version of these bills and come to an agreement and put them, pass them out of the legislature and put them before the governor's desk. So going along the areas that Noel mentioned, the first one, HB 197, is sort of in the area of buildings, building efficiency, reducing emissions from buildings, specifically reducing high GHG, global warming potential gases. The second one is on the area of permitting reform, so making it easier to permit solar installations, both residential and commercial. And the last one is really kind of around the area of healthy forest. So looking for, and I think this might get a little bit to what Leah was talking about in one of the programs, though maybe I'm misspeaking there and happy to be corrected. But anyways, looking for better land management.
Super, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, she acknowledged in the chat too. Yeah, this was it.
Okay.
Thanks, Leah. I'm glad I didn't misrepresent.
So a quick look at actions that are going to be coming up. Honolulu is, Paul, you want to talk to that?
Oh, that's what I already said, that, the 3 of us will be out there with a booth tabling for the Walk for Water. This is the Sierra Club event around Red Hill.
And around Red Hill. And then on Hawaii Island, down at the tennis stadium, I believe, EV and Clean Energy Fair. We're going to be tabling there April 29. And then Kauai has, go ahead, Helen.
Yeah, this actually fits in with our breakout sessions because, I misunderstood what you asked me, Ron. So this is something that happened already.
Yeah.
It was last week, but we will be sending out a recording, and I also will put in the chat how you can, if you didn't register, how you can get the recording. But what it was 2 people who talked about climate psychology, about how it is affecting us, the crisis, and not only us but kids. And it was really, really well done. Gave us some tools for resilience, as well as just sort of making it real, that it's okay. It's okay that we're feeling this because it's real. So I'll put in the chat how you can get the recording. I was hoping it would be ready by today, but it's not. So I'll just put it in the chat.
Thank you so much, Helen, for all you do with those monthly forums. Outstanding. And then anybody here, Doug, I think, had to leave, can talk about Maui's tabling events, 2 of them coming up, April 22nd, April 26th.
I can speak to it just via an email I got from Bobby, that she said that Doug and others will be tabling at those events.
Fantastic.
For Citizens Climate Lobby.
I'll be there on the 22nd. And
you are part of the other. Great.
Yeah. And I don't know about Wednesday, the 26th. That was supposed to be today, but fortunately they changed it to a week from today. And Doug will be there, and I don't know if I will be, but I'll be there on Saturday at the Maui Mall. Yes, with those guys, a couple other people, Bobby, I think, Barry, and Doug.
Super,
Great.
Steve. Thank you so much.
Can I jump back in for just a second, Ron? Because what I failed to say about our monthly forums is that these are on Zoom, so people can attend them statewide, but even, we have people from New Zealand and the mainland and so forth. So, and they get posted on the CCL Hawaii website and also at HICA. So stay tuned for every month.
That is so great. And then I think the last national update, we're going to ask Molly to say some
Ron.
words. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to call attention to a couple that Leah had posted in the chat. So Oahu Community Fair on May 20th, and also the Community Climate Fair Hawaii June 17th. So Leah, we'll get this on our calendar, our website, so that we can broadcast this to our members as well. Thank you.
Mahalo. And it was supposed to say Community Climate Fair, and I will share the flyers with you folks.
Great.
Soon.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay. And Molly, just before you expound on the wonderful event that's coming up, the conference, let me just mention, Steve, the legislative session, Hawaii legislative session, when it ends, what I would highly, highly, highly recommend is volunteer to be on a U.S. Congress lobby team.
Okay.
That's a wonderful opportunity to learn about the issues that Citizens Climate Lobby feels is important, and to learn about what our 4 members of Congress feel. So Molly, please convince Steve that he needs to be on a lobby team.
Steve, I think were you involved already in a prior lobby meeting, I believe. But anyway, well, this is what we do, right? We're Citizens Climate Lobby. And so this is why we write letters and table and educate the public. And so we can go to our members of Congress, build relationships, put our gladiator gear on, just in case we need to be tough, and but we go with respect. And it's just pretty much my favorite thing about CCL. So for the first time in 3 years, we have 3 of us going in person back to DC for the conference, those dates, June 10th through the 13th. The main conference days will be the 10th, probably the Sunday and the Monday. But anyway, you'll get more info on that. We are working on getting 4 meetings on the same day, June 13, so the folks who are there in person, and you're welcome to join us in person if you can, but so that we can travel between 2 Senate offices and the 2 members of Congress, and also get a time that works for folks back home to get on Zoom or a conference call. So even if you're not going in person, we would like you to please volunteer to be on a lobby team or more than one. That's the main thing. But I will say we usually meet 2 or 3 times before the lobby meeting. We get policy updates up to the minute with suggestions for the primary and secondary asks for our members of Congress, depending, on where they stand, if they're Democrats, Republicans, etc. You guys maybe all know that, but at any rate, that's just kind of a overview, and we'd love to have you. So in the chat, I'm going to put my email address, but I'll also say we have Ron is the liaison to Tokuda's office, Paul is to Case and also Shots, and Ron and I are liaisons right now for Hirono's office. So if you want to indicate any of those particular members that you'd like to be on, please do that. And you can also contact Ron or Paul, but I'm going to hit send with my email address there. And any questions? I know it's the end of the meeting, but happy to answer questions.
Ollie, I do have a question. So when we go out there, is it acceptable to just have aloha shirts on, or do we really need to have
I think Paul and I decided aloha shirts are a good idea. And
okay.
You know what? We've learned now we bring leis. I think I'd like to do a project where we bring leis to Senator Hirono. I keep saying this time we're going to do it. Paper cranes, because she has her staff teach everyone how to make paper cranes. So we'll make some. Yes, bring all the aloha we can. Okay. And you guys, when you meet on Zoom, wear your aloha shirts. Why not? So, okay. Yeah.
Thank
And
you so much, Molly.
very important question, Noel.
Yeah, and I
All right.
think Molly's first experience lobbying on the Hill was following along her parents and watching them in the cafeteria engage in heavy conversations about heavy topics. Is that right, Molly?
That's pretty close, actually. We would go to DC on and off, and my parents would always take us to the halls of Congress and visit our member. And once we had dinner or lunch in the restaurant, the dining room, I guess it was. Yeah. So that made an impression on me, which is a great reason to get our youth to go along if we can. But hopefully they'll at least come onto our conference callers. And
so I want to thank everybody. We ran a little bit over time, and that was intentional because we had good stuff to cover. And Leah, thank you for being here. Mr. Dave Chun, sir, thank you for being here. I believe it might be the bewitching midnight hour, midnight plus 15 or 16. So you get the champion award for time zone travel. Thank you so much. And Noel, do you have a closing thought or a closing slide?
I just flashed on the Mahalo slide. Just thanking everybody for being here and sharing. And clearly, the fight we're fighting can't happen unless we're all pitching in. So thanks very much.
Yeah. And core value is to create relationships, and that we do that by listening rather than exercising power and laying down in front of the bulldozer or driving big spikes into the trees before they're sent to the timber mill. There are groups that focus on that, and they may have the same ultimate goal as we do, but we don't choose to take that kind of confrontational action, which may very well be effective and may very well be needed. But our role, I think, and our mode of operation is to be polite and to be respectful. And as somebody said, it's more difficult with some members of Congress than others to have a respectful attitude based on who they are and what they've done. But if you can't have a respectful attitude when you meet with XYZ, you need to take yourself off that lobby team, because we don't go in and take our shoes off and pound our heel on the table as others do. So that's my answer to that question. We try to create friendly relationships.
Could I just add something, though?
Yeah.
I have fire in my belly.
I do too.
And my choice of how to express it is to do my best to build political will, because if we don't do that, they'll have some kind of political will, but not the will that I would like them to have. So that's why some of us have chosen to work this way, and some of us still have, pounded the pavement. And my kids grew up going to demonstrations. They do that still. And, but I guess this is just, I feel like if we don't do this part, all the demonstrations and all of that gets attention, but it doesn't get a conversation going. So just had to add that. Thanks for asking, Dave. It's good to see you again.
Sure.
On that happy note, Molly, and that wonderful question, Dave, I think we're going to say a hui ho and bid a fond farewell until we meet again in another fruitful meeting. So thank you all. You make it all worthwhile. Appreciate it.
Nice to you guys.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Take care.
Mahalo.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.